What is your relationship with imposter syndrome, fear of judgment, or fear of embarrassment? I feel like it is something very common in today's society, especially within the younger generations. We are scared to show our talents, to show our skills, and to show our worth because we are afraid that we are not good enough, we are not professionals just yet, or we are afraid to fail in front of other people. We are afraid to put our reputation on the line. We see all those Instagram motivational quotes, we see other people doing it in real life, entrepreneurs, influencers. In movies, we have protagonists, we have the heroes, but we can't get ourselves to do it. We have an invisible barrier that doesn't let us be who we could be. Lao Tzu once said, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." While Kobe Bryant said, "The mindset isn't about seeking a result. It's about the process of getting to that result. It's about the journey and the approach. It's a way of life." And he called that the Mamba Mentality. And today I want to explain how this very mentality has helped me overcome imposter syndrome and how it can help you do the same. So without further ado, my name is Fernandes. Welcome to Muse. Kobe Bryant was one of the all-time greatest basketball players that tragically passed away in 2020. I had been living under a rock because that was the first time I had ever heard of him. I also got instantly obsessed with his story, his mentality, and how he got to be who he became. Kobe was entirely right when he said, "Heroes come and go, but legends are forever." And even though he was gone, Kobe kept on inspiring. The first lesson to overcome imposter syndrome, fear of judgment, fear of embarrassment is, paradoxically enough, implementation. And here is what I mean by that. Implementation means taking something that you have just learned, that you have researched, that you have understood, and put that into practice. And if you are anything like me, you like to stay in what I call the inspiration phase. I read the books, I watch the tutorials, I even do the courses sometimes, but I don't get myself to practice and share what I have just learned. I have a barrier between my consumption phase, where I take information in, and my creation phase, where I share and apply what I have just learned. But without applying what you just learned, or without applying what you have just understood and researched, you will probably forget. Let's throw back to our history lessons in high school. I used to remember all the dates, all these events by heart, to instantly forget them once the exam was over. And the reason for that is pretty simple. If I am not deeply passionate about the subject, or if I don't practice and don't use the information on a daily basis, or at least once, I will forget. That's just the nature of human beings. And as a basketball player, Kobe was always looking for ways to improve. May that be his game, his preparation, his recovery, his knowledge. And every single time he had gathered that knowledge, that input, he did not shy away to put that into practice. Kobe said, "No fear. If I wanted to implement something new into my game, I'd see it and try incorporating it immediately. No fear of judgment or failure." Just imagine being in front of thousands and thousands of people, may that be in a stadium or on stage, and you do something and you fail. You do a public speech and you mumble. You are a basketball player and you shoot some air balls. How would you feel? Because Kobe didn't shy away, even though thousands and thousands of people were watching. Now, you and me, we don't have that many people watching us, but we always feel, or at least we tend to feel, like there is an audience at any point in time. Just think about it. Have you ever not done something because you felt like you were observed? May that be trying a recipe and not doing it because you thought it would end up a non-tasty meal. Or you don't go to the gym, even though you do have a gym card, but you don't go to the gym because you are afraid that you will do the exercises wrong and you will feel observed. Or one of the most common examples probably is you have this one picture that you love, but you don't post it on social media because you are afraid of being judged. You are afraid that other people won't value that one thing that you do value. More often than not, we don't create, we don't implement because we are afraid of failing. We are afraid of being judged. And this might be because society has partially shown us that over the years, this side of society over the years, people have stamped on our dreams. They have told us that we couldn't do it, or they have judged us because we did fail. And I just think that we have never been taught to live with failure or deal with failure, because Kobe did that. Kobe embraced failure and embraced judgment with open arms. And even though the stakes were high and thousands of people were watching, Kobe knew that if he did not try, he would not improve. And if he did not improve, he would not become one of the all-time greatest basketball players who has ever lived. And that was not an option for him. That was his version of a muse, so he better live up to that. He says, if I want to play, this is what I have to do. So show up and do it. And an analogy for us, the ordinary people that are afraid of creating because we are embarrassed or we are afraid of failure, is that if we want to live, if we want to create, if we want to become this version of a muse, well, we better show up and do it. And this is one of the most prominent traits in high performers that I still need to accept sometimes and remind myself of sometimes. Without failure, without potential embarrassment, progress won't happen. Failure is just part of the process, and if you didn't figure it out the first time, well, now you have better chances of figuring it out the second time. May that be in regards to your project, your craft, your skill. Failure and this embarrassment should be welcomed into your life, because it is also the best kind of feedback in order to learn from your mistakes. It is the best kind of feedback and the fastest way to improve. By implementing what you have learned and you have understood, you prove to yourself that you can learn, you have learned, and you have understood. That is also the way to prove to yourself that you can create value, that you are worth it. And embarrassment is the only obstacle in your way to make yourself proud of how much you can achieve and how much you can create. The second lesson that Kobe taught me was that the antidote against imposter syndrome is not to be an expert of your skill, your talents, and showing that to the world. The antidote against imposter syndrome is becoming an expert of yourself, knowing your craft and your journey while showing that to the world. Because the more you know yourself, the less you value other people's opinions. The more you know about your craft, the less you fear to show that to the world. And the more you know about your journey, the less you care to satisfy your perceptions of what other people might think of you. He said, my approach was that I would rather risk embarrassment now than be embarrassed later, when I had 1-0 titles. Focus on the reason why you do what you do. The greater vision is always the most important thing. Put the spotlight on that, on the one thing that you want to achieve. And anything else will not matter. This is not about embarrassment or fear of judgment. This is about you accomplishing what you set out to achieve. Thinking about the journey in this way, of what is the end goal, having that in mind, always in mind, releases all the pressure from you might have to feel embarrassed or you might have to feel judged. Because instead of thinking about the feeling, what will happen, you think about the vision ahead. What will happen if you go through that situation? Because you won't get one without the other, that's for sure. And in the end, focusing on the bigger vision is the most important thing. It's the one thing that will allow you to release all the pressure from either feeling embarrassed or feeling judged. It doesn't matter. But it will help you also refocus on what you need to do and what you have to do in order to go through it, in order to achieve whatever you set out to achieve. So in summary, instead of focusing on why you should feel embarrassed or why you should be afraid of failing or why you should feel afraid of being judged, one, start implementing what you have learned. That will give you the confidence to execute more of that because you are proving to yourself that you can create and you have value and you are able to do it. And two, redirect this focus from potential embarrassment, from potential judgment, potential failure to what you are giving up if you don't go through those situations. Hence, you are giving up on your craft. You are giving up on your project. You are giving up on the one thing that will always be more important than this fear of judgment, failure, and embarrassment. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you haven't already, click the subscribe button, the follow button, depending on the platform that you are using. And if you are specifically listening to this on YouTube, I would love to know what fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of embarrassment is hindering you to achieve in your life. Let me know down in the comments, and I'm genuinely curious to know what that is. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.